Here today, I am with Johannes Mallow. He is a former World Memory Champion in 2012, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And he has done amazing things. He has won so many championships. I believe the Italian, German championships, XMT. And so he's just won so many championships, and he's also the first person to ever break 10,000 at a competition, which is just incredible. And so, thank you very much, Johannes, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me today. It's quite nice to talk to you again because you mentioned that before we talked a year ago or something like that. So great opportunity. Great to see you here.
It's my pleasure to have you. And so,
Thank
let's start. So, tell me about yourself. Just give me some basic information, who you are, or I guess people know who you are, but what you do and things like that.
you. Yeah, so yeah, as people know, I'm competing since 2004. So for a long, long time right now, for 12 years. And beside my competing career, I studied in Magdeburg. It's a quite small city in Germany, in the middle of Germany. And then I worked for 6 years in research for the university on the field of MRI. And right now, from the beginning of last year, I started to do my own thing, trying to give lectures about memory, train people, and but also compete much more. So that's what I do right now. I'm a memory coach and some kind of half professional competitor, I think. Yeah,
Half prof. I think you're like full time professional. That's what it seems like. With all your competition experience, it seems like you're always going.
thank you. Yeah, but as you know, you cannot earn so much. There are several tournaments where you really can win some money these days, but it's not that much that you can really live on just competing. So that's what I mean by half professional. I would like to be a professional, just professional athlete for 2 or 3 years, just competing, trying to win some prize money and living on that. It's not that much that you can do that right now. But if you win a big competition like the World Memory Championship last year, that's close to being a professional because then you can really live on it. But you never can expect really to win every tournament. So that because there are so much great people out there, and you really have to compete hard and train hard to keep it up to the top.
That's true, and that's probably no. That's what's probably great about this sport is that people do it just because they love memory. Just because they want to memorize more, memorize faster, and so people just go into it without expecting big prize money or anything like that, which is what I think is really cool about this sport specifically because people just do it for the love of sports.
Yes, yes, I agree, totally agree, because you see so many people paying their trips all over the world,
Hmm.
and it's like an expensive hobby. You're doing that stuff, and you're going everywhere in the world. You see the world, you meet new people, and it's great. Beside the sport, and I think all those people try to uh, they all do the same. They want to improve their own scores, and that's what I do. I try to improve my own scores, and I think that every memory athlete has that in common. That you just want to be better every time, and trying to prove what is possible with your brain, with the memory techniques, and that's great.
And I couldn't agree more with you on that. That it's just about pushing the human mind, trying to see what the human mind is capable of and just going out
Yeah,
there. And, like with other sports, people do it for the money, people like going football, basketball, things like that, because they want to make, a lot of money, And, some people do it for the love of the sport, but, that paycheck is nice too. Um, but as you could speak from experience, me too. Paying your own way to go to different competitions. It's expensive, especially when you're going across the world and things like that. And so it's just like a big expense. But the best payoff is seeing yourself, getting these scores that you're setting for yourself, and you're like, oh wait, maybe next time, I could get a deck 30 seconds faster, and so it excites you to go. but also meeting people like you and other mental athletes from around the world is just a great experience. That you can never really get anywhere else, really. In this tight little community of mental athletes we have.
Yeah, I agree. So it's a small community, but all the people are really excited about improving themselves, and that's great. But I think it's also in other sports. Okay, you can earn much more money in soccer or in baseball or in basketball or something like that, or tennis. But I think those people on the top also just want to improve themselves. Okay, they have enough money. That's true. But I think they have the same motivation. They want to improve themselves, and they have the chance because they have a lot of money and they have enough money. They just can do it all day long. So that's what we can't do. We can't do it all day long, just training for ourselves. We have to earn some money somehow else by teaching somebody or something like that. That's also great. I would love to have the chance for 2 or 3 years just to train all day long to see what happens. That would be cool.
That would, like, your scores would probably be amazing if you trained for 2 to 3 years. That's all you did was train, train, train every day. Amazing scores.
Yeah.
That'd be incredible. And so,
Yeah.
so let me ask you, how did you get into mnemonics and memory techniques? What got you into the memory competition?
Actually, I saw a big TV show in Germany in 2003, and there was Dr. Gunther Carsten. I think some people know him. Do you know him
I have
from
not
Germany,
heard of him.
Dr.
Mm.
Okay, he was world memory champion in 2007, and he beat it Ben then in Bahrain, and in 2003 I saw him on a big TV show, and he taught a celebrity. She was the celebrity of some kind, or known for being some kind of dumb, and he taught her how to memorize a 20-digit number, and she did it. And I thought, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. And then I went to the internet and just make a little research and found the club Memory XL. I think some people know it. It's really, really big in Germany. And they have a website and they have all this mnemonic techniques on their site. And I just tried it. And I tried to memorize a deck of cards. The first class I had a list with all the cards and the image. And I had a second list with the location. So I didn't do anything in my head, just creating the story. And then I went to the location during recall and I said, okay, there's a clown on the location. Okay, what was the clown? I watched on my list. It's Ace of Clubs. And then I no, okay, I can remember the image. And the only thing what is missing is the connection between card and image. And that was quite strange because I was able to memorize a deck of cards in 10 minutes. And that's what was the start. And then I somehow became addicted. Went to the first memory competition in 2004 and I improved my score every time. And it was quite amazing to improve my scores all the time. That's basically how I started.
Wow, I did not know that. And so it was competitions, like memorizing like your cards that really got you interested in memory techniques. Uh, did that ever transition into like, hey, I could apply this to useful information, like if it's learning material for your business or for your job, things like that. Like, when did that transition happen for you?
Um, it it didn't happen at the beginning or at the first place. At the beginning, it was just training and improving my scores and such stuff. But
Mhm.
I think after 1 year of experiences with the journey, with the method of loci, and so on, with all these journeys, I felt okay. I can use it for something else, and that's what I always recommend. The first thing is it's good if you have experience with the techniques, and therefore it's very good to just memorize a list of words, memorize digits or something, and then you will become familiar with the techniques. And after you really know how it works for yourself, because I think it's a little bit different for everybody, and if you know how it works for yourself, then you can really use it for your study or for memorizing names and faces for real life or memorizing vocabulary or something like that. And I think that after 1 or 2 years, I started using it for my study and using it a little bit for learning languages and such stuff. And yeah, but basically, I was always there was always a lot of training for the competitions for me. Yeah.
And I totally agree with you on the on that point that it's good to memorize, I guess, useless information because you kind of get used to what works for you and what doesn't work. And so when you actually apply it to, I guess, useful information, you know, okay, I know what works for me, so I can start doing this. And a lot of people, they no, they see what we do and they think, oh, that's so cool, but no, that's kind of useless. You know, when do you ever have to memorize a deck of cards or memorize, 500 digits? And, which is true. You
Yeah.
don't really have to do that in real life, but you can apply the same techniques to useful information. You just have to tweak it a little bit, and then it just
Yes.
works, right? It just works perfectly to remembering languages or vocabulary or science concepts. And so that's probably something people just don't realize. They just see what we do, and they instantly think, "You're a genius. It's too hard," and they're like, "You can't
Yeah.
use it for anything." And so, is that something that you get a lot of when you try to teach people that they just think it's too hard or you're special?
Exactly what you said. I have exactly the same experience that people really don't. The most people don't understand that um, it's um, it's an ability that you can use for everything, and they just see, okay, this guy memorizes the deck of cards in 30 seconds or something like that, or 500 digits. How do I use it in daily life? And what I think there's a good if you compare it to physical sports, you will never need to run 100 meters in 12 seconds or something like that. Maybe you can go to the supermarket and buy everything very fast because you run through the supermarket. But, nobody needs it, and that's a good. If you compare it with that, then it's much more clear to the people that it's if you can do that, you have a physical advantage. You're better. Your health is better. Your heart beats better, and such stuff. And I think you have to compare it with that, and then you can explain to the people, hey, that's just exercise. Memorizing 100 digits or memorizing a random list of words is an exercise. And if you exercise a lot, then you can use it much better on real stuff. And that's how we should see it. It's a sport. And the sport is always useless for daily life somehow because nobody needs to throw a spear or something like that today. It's totally useless. But it's a sport. Yeah. And that's how we should see it. And the next step is how can I use memo techniques to daily life stuff like vocabulary or something like that. So yeah, I really have to tell that people all the time. And I think you have the same experience with your students.
And that's probably it's probably the most frustrating part because
Yes.
they don't give it a chance. No, that's the big like give at least try it before you say no it doesn't work for you or it's too hard. They don't ever try it, and so that's the difficult part that people don't want to at least give it a chance. You're not telling them, hey, I want you to be able to memorize this deck of cards in 30 seconds. You're not like trying to make them do something that's like seems impossible to them. That'd be like a lot of practicing. You're just trying to get them to do something very simple. If it's like memorizing 20 digits, or it's like learning the technique to remember face and names, just something very simple that they could use in their actual lives. And so, that's just something that's kind of frustrating when you're trying to show people and talk to people about like, hey, you could try it. You want to try it? They're like, no, 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 I'm good. I'll just repeat everything a million times and hopefully I'll
Yeah.
get it. And so, is that? Do you think that's the biggest hump to overcome? People's unwilling to try and I guess self confidence that they could actually do it.
Yeah, both. I think the point is I always in my lectures and during my coaching I always try to memorize real life stuff with them. So,
Mm.
for example, learning a list of president names or something like that. The German presidents from 1950 or something. It's 11 right now, and they can memorize it very easy. Or memorize the digits or the numbers from 1 to 10 in Japanese or something like that. They really feel it then. They see, okay, I can do that. I know the list of the names of the presidents right now. I know the list of the 10 digits in Japanese. And then they understand, okay, I can use it somehow, but how do I use it for Chinese numbers? And they say, okay, it's the same. It's Japanese numbers, Chinese numbers, just switch it a little bit. And I think people have problems to transfer it something on something else. And then they ask me again, how do I memorize names and faces? I said, okay, you just memorize the list of president names. It's not such a big step, but it's very hard for people to make the step by their own. And one other big problem is that people have problems with creating stories. There are really some people are very good. Kids are great. I love to teach kids because they have the best stories. And always when I teach adults, I say, okay, if you cannot come up with a story, then just imagine what would a kid do with this story. If you have a cookie and something else like a television, what would a kid do with a cookie and the television? It would throw the cookie through the television or something like that. So I would always ask the people, think about what would you make up, what kind of story would you make up if you would be a kid. And that helps a little bit, because then people feel, okay, now I'm a kid, I can make the story, and I'm allowed to make the story, because I always think people are afraid of making up crazy stories because they think they are crazy or something right now. Because we are adults right now, we have to be serious, and we don't make jokes, and we don't create stories or something like that. And that's a shame, because everybody has the ability for that, but people are a little bit afraid of making up such crazy stories and going wild in their brain. That's the point. Yeah.
And that's something I didn't notice too, that adults, it's a lot harder for them usually, because it's kind of like through your life you're kind of told not to be as creative and imaginative, so it kind of goes down, down, down. Then all of a sudden you're like, to remember really good, you have to create these stories, have fun, imagine it. So it's like they have to fight uphill to relearn what they had once. And so it's kind of, it just takes practice to kind of get used to using your imagination again, being creative. And I think that's something that's probably hard for older people, just like adults, or if it's even like college students. It's just harder to get back. Okay, I have to make just a fun story. Just make it fun. Like you said, go wild. But
Yes.
I think they're embarrassed. I don't know why. Like, you don't have to tell people what you picture in your head. You don't have to like share like, hey, I saw this for this. Because I learned you never tell people what you picture for their name, because they might be upset by what you picture. So you just like, I just have a good memory. Like, don't worry about it. And so it's like you don't have to share everything you picture with somebody. It can just be personal what you see. And so there's like really no reason to, be ashamed or embarrassed by what you're picturing or anything like that. It's just about just having fun with it.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. But it's hard to teach people that. Yeah.
That's true. So let's talk a little bit about memory competitions, competing. Okay, uh, how much do you train in general for memory competitions?
Yeah, that's interesting question, because it's always a question I always get, and I think I try to train almost daily, and if it comes up to the competition, like right now, there's the XMT coming up, and I try to train every day 1 to 2 hours, something like that. I think I do that 5 days a week. Not every day, but I try that right now 5 days a week. And if there is no competition up close right now, so then sometimes I really skip training, and then I make a break for several weeks. So it can also happen. But I try to do something daily, and if it comes up to a competition, for 2 hours, 1 or 2 hours, something like that. Actually, before our interview here, I was training together with Simon Reinhardt, and we trained together for the XMT for 1 hour, and we will meet again after the interview. So we will try training again, and it's great to have somebody else to train with, because sitting alone at home, it's quite creepy somehow.
uh, I understand. Yeah, when you train with someone, it's like you're competing against them, so they kind of push you to be better, and you push them to be better. You know, because you kind of want to beat them on the different events. And so I totally agree that training with someone really does help. Um, so when you're training, how does your schedule look like? Do you only practice the things that you're currently having trouble with, or do you make sure to go through all the different events for a competition? Like, how do you actually like plan your training out?
Um, always so I'm yeah. What how to explain? I think I have a training diary and I write everything down, and up on that I schedule my training schedule. For example, if I see okay I have problems with one discipline like binary or digits or something, then I say okay for the next days or something like that I train more digits. And then I see, okay, I haven't trained names for a while, so I do names much more. But basically, I try to train everything um, even, equally, so that I have they have the same amount of training for every discipline. That's very important because every discipline is important, and yeah. But I always adjust my results. So if it needs more cards training, I do more cards training, and if it needs more images training, I do that. So I really adjust all the time, and yeah, and sometimes I'm just thinking about okay, what's more fun, the most fun today, and then I do that. But you cannot do always just what is fun for you. You always sometimes you really have to train those disciplines you don't like, and that's the hardest thing I think. Even in using your journeys, for example, I always use the same journeys because I like them. I'm really familiar with the journeys and they're good and I like them. I think it's the same for all the people. But you really have to train on the journeys which are not good because then they will be better and so on. So you have to discipline yourself somehow. And yeah, what about your training schedule?
Uh, for me, I try to kind of, like you said, kind of train everything, and depending on what events coming or what competitions coming up, I kind of tailor my training to that specifically. And so I try to do pretty much everything in one day, but then after that, my extra journeys for that specific day, I put that towards a specific area I'm having trouble with. So if I'm having trouble with numbers, I'm gonna use all my extra journeys just to train numbers, because like you said, I want to be well rounded at competition. So I got to practice all of them in order to keep my score up and keep improving. And so I always make sure I practice everything. Then any extra journeys, practice my weaker event that I feel that needs to be improved overall.
That's very interesting because what I do is always use the same journey for the same discipline. And I'm doing that since forever. And so I have a special words journey, I have a special numbers journey, and I have a special images journey, and that helps me a lot. And a lot of people use journeys for everything. I have special journeys. I don't know if it's better or not, but I'm really familiar and I really know, okay, if I'm on my numbers journey, for example, for speed numbers, I exactly know I have to be on location number 40 after 1.5 minutes or something like that. I exactly know that. And then I can look at my clock and see, okay, 1.5 minutes at location 40, I'm in time. So that helps me a lot during competitions to keep up my speed and my rhythm.
That's interesting because I didn't think about it like that. Because if you have specific journeys for specific events, you get so used to where you should be in a journey compared to the time. And that's something I didn't really think about. Because for me, it's more about, like you were saying, having all the journeys, just cycling through all my journeys to make sure that they're good enough to be able to hold the information, be able for me to recall. And so I just kind of cycle through, but I do make notes on when I get really good scores with specific journeys. Become like, okay, use this one next time for numbers. You're like, if I'm in a competition, use this journey. And so I do make
Yeah,
notes on which ones are really good for specific events because some just don't really work out. And I don't know if it's just like the layout or if it's just like the information I'm trying to store there. But so I do, trying to make notes of like, okay, this one's pretty good for cards, so make sure, practice this one next time. But for the most part, I just kind of cycle through everything just to get familiar with all the locations and journeys.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's also a good way to do it, and that's what I mentioned before. I think everybody has his own way, and that's important. People always ask me how you do that and how you do that, and that's good. They can ask me, and I can give them an advice. But the main advice is try your own thing, and that's very important. You can try to adapt discipline, methods and ways to do it, but if it doesn't work for you, try something else, and that's important. When I begin, I always also asked some people, but mainly I just did my own thing and built my own system and used my own methods with putting 2 images on a location or 3 or something
Mm.
like that. And I tried everything and found my way where I feel very comfortable and important for athletes.
And that's probably one of the most important ideas is, do what works for you. Just because you're a former world champion doesn't mean everything you do is going to work for me or work for that person, right? It doesn't mean it. But a lot of people, I think, they just want to follow the champions and know exactly what they do because they think if they copy exactly what you do, it's going to work for them exactly. And that's where no, they're misguided by that idea. If I just do everything of Johannes is doing, I could become a world champion. But it's whatever works for your systems might not work for me. And I might have a lot of trouble. And
Yeah,
just there's no point in me trying to use your systems because they're just not working. And so I think you do bring up a good point. You just have to do it and see what works for you. There's no way around it. You just have to go. And so you were saying that you practice your week events. What are your week events? Because it seems like you're pretty much like well rounded. With some exceptions like speed numbers are really good, cards are really good. What's your week events?
yeah. If you look closely at my results, you will see the names and faces is weakest event. Yeah, so I'm still good at that, but I'm not far. I'm far away from the top there, and that's a point. I think names and faces is special for everybody. Some are really good, and some are really bad. And I at the beginning I was really bad at that, and then I tried to modify a little bit my techniques, and now I use for names and faces, and that works for me a little bit better than without journeys. So I improved a little bit, but it's still far away from the top, and I think that's some kind of talent there. That some people are really good in names and faces, like Simon, for example. He's really good in names and faces, but from the beginning, and maybe he has his technique, but I think it's also a little bit talent. And yeah, maybe names and faces is something. Yeah, that's my weakest discipline, and I always try to improve there. And yeah, it works a little bit, but it's very, very hard and a long way to improve in names and faces for me.
And I think that's a lot of people have the same problem. Names and faces, they just don't like the event. For me, I think that's probably one of my worst events. And I think a reason why it's hard is because there's there's not really a systematic way to making images for names because they could be any names. And you could take specific parts like if it ends in like Johnny, if it ends in like Y or NNY, you can make an image for that. But for the most part, you have no idea what names are going to come up. They could be completely new names, and you have to make an image on the spot. So you can't really practice all these pre-made images for names, unlike numbers and cards, because there's only 52 cards. But depending on your system, you could have 2,704 images for cards. But there's still like a finite amount of images you have. But names, it's kind of like random words too. There's infinite amount of words and names, so you can't really make images for all the names and words out there. Is that what you think
Yeah,
makes it hard?
I think though that's one point, but so you cannot make up images for every name, but after a while, if you train a lot, you will become a little bit familiar with some names. For example, for the XMT, they're mainly Western names like US names and such stuff. And if you do it a lot, you will become familiar with some names. And Johnny is clear, and Sarah is always the same image for me. So time after time, if you do it a lot, then you have somehow fixed images for that. But especially in international competitions, the names are crazy sometimes. It's just vocabulary, and you cannot make up names there, images there. So it's pretty hard. And but after a while, you really are familiar with that. That's one point, the names. But the other point for me is recognizing the face again.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I just see, okay, is this guy or is this guy? It looks totally the same for me, and I think that's where his talent is important. Some people just look too similar for me, and I cannot say is it that guy or that guy. But then the journey helps me somehow. If I use a journey, then it helps me a little bit because I put the person on a location, and then I see, if I see this person again, I see, I saw that on this guy on that location. It helps me a little bit. And on that location is also the name. So that helps me to separate the people a little bit better. But I think that's an important point too, separating the people from their faces, and that's where a lot of people struggle.
And I totally forgot about that point, and that's so true. In the U.S. competition, I don't think there's or maybe there's baby in the international. I can't recall. But in the USA, there's baby faces, and when I went through, I was like, all these babies look the same. They're big eyed, smiling. I'm like, I have no idea what baby's which. And so you're right,
Yeah.
though the faces, if they look too similar. Just like I have no idea how to distinguish it, but your method does help. You're like, wait, I saw that person on my couch, and so
Yes.
that kind of helps you bring the face. You're like, okay, I saw this face, I didn't see this face, and so that's a very interesting method on how you do it, because I know a lot of people just kind of do change the name to a picture and stick it on the face for the most part. That's like probably the most common method to remembering
Yes.
names. Uh, so, what systems do you use for different events? Like if it's cards, numbers, binary. What are your different systems?
Yeah, basically for numbers, I use a 3-digit system based on a major system. So just basic stuff like 1 is an T and 2 is an N and 3 is an M and so on. So I build up there a 3-digit system, and for binary, I translate 9 binaries into one image. But those binary are in a square, so 3 times 3 in a block, and I translate that into one image, and it goes very fast for me. And for cards, I use a system like Alex Mullen does, like a big system, but just a half big card system. I'm not sure if you know that. How does it work? But it's basically you just need 1,352 images to have a big card system, and then you switch the locations. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but maybe I can explain more about that. And yeah, that's basically the systems. And yeah, for abstract images, I use some kind of also a different system, but I think nobody uses that. It's like bringing the 5 images into a special order. Like number 3 is first, then is number 1. Like counting the holes in the images, or the shape, the color of the shape, for example. And I bring 3, 1, 5, and something like that. So I have my own system, and for cards and for abstract images, and for numbers I just use this what everybody uses, major system.
And so, did you expand that to a person, action, object, or is it just one image?
It's just one image, and what I did when I created the system was being very, very careful which images I choose. So it took me half a year to create the system, because I want to be really sure that I don't have 2 bottles in the system, so I don't have whiskey and rum or something like that. And that took a while, but it helps me a lot right now, because the images are really different, and I think that's the key for my numbers results.
And and that's a good point. because when I was creating my own systems, I was was trying to make sure nothing kind of were similar, especially since I use a PAO, so I have to make sure none of the objects were similar, none of the actions were too similar, and because like
Yeah,
because that messes you up, right? If you have two similar things, you're like crap. Now was this a football or a soccer ball? Like in your mind, you just kind of see a ball, and so it's kind of hard to kind of
yes.
distinguish, which ball it was. And so I totally understand what where you're coming from, where why it would take you half a year to create a system because you're trying to make it so unique. All the different images unique from one another, and so that's
Are you
that.
still there? Hello, hello,
Yeah.
hello. Yeah, yeah, back. Okay, just a short break in the internet connection.
Okay. Is it good now?
Yeah, yeah, it's good right now. So soccer ball and football. Yeah, you don't know which was there at the point, and that's a problem. And I tried to figure that out before I started making the system and training with the system. And yeah, so that's basically what I do. And I put two images on one location in almost every discipline except spoken numbers. And I did three on a location for some years, and then I switched back to two on a location. Works good for me.
Mm. I can see that, and it's just you kind of have to figure out, right? Like maybe three might work, but as you figure out, when you test it more and more, it's maybe it slows you down. Maybe you're confused about the order that they were coming in. So two, at least you have a 50-50 chance if you forget the order, to get it right. It's like a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, but 50-50 on every location is not good. So if you have it all the time, but exactly that. So I tried three and I did three and it was good, but I have the feeling that two is a little bit faster and more. The rhythm is better, and so I stick to that.
And that's and it's like what you were saying. You have to figure out what works for you. And you
Yes.
found 2 digits is better than three, and it's better than or two images per location is better than three or better than one. And so I want to ask you because you probably remember it. I would remember it. Um, when you got 10,000 in that competition, the 10,000 score. Uh, like, did you plan on like doing your best in every event? Like, did you plan on breaking records? Like, what did you plan for that specific championship?
I didn't plan something different as for the other competitions, and my plan is always to get to my best results in every discipline. So to my best score. So I tried in every discipline to get maybe close to the world record or break the world record, and have a plan for every discipline. So I know for numbers I want to do that, and for worlds I want to do that, and so on. And usually it doesn't work out for every discipline, but in this competition it just worked out for almost every discipline. And I never planned to beat 10,000 points or something like that because I didn't expect that. But if I count up all my plans for every discipline, it sums up to 10,000. So it was great, but I never planned that. So it was pretty nice. And actually, the point was that there was a mistake in spoken numbers by correcting the number. So I had 304 on the scorecard, so in the results, but then we rechecked, and the zero was a six actually. So it wasn't 304, it
Oh,
was 364, and after that I was over 10,000 points. So we have to recheck the spoken numbers, and then it jumps up to 10,059 or something like that. It was quite nice, yeah. And yeah, it's a while ago. If you look at the results right now, it's just 8,700 or 900 right now. It's the same result from a few years ago. But that was a special day for me. Yeah.
yeah, I would bet it was a special day. It's an amazing thing, and it's interesting that you said. And I think I kind of do the same thing that you kind of just you do your events and try to get your best score. Maybe you're not too focused on breaking a record or anything. You're just more focused on getting my best score. I know in practice, I got 520 digits. I'm going to try to get that in competition because that's just the score, I got. So I know I could get it again. And so that's like an interesting
Yes.
thing that you're trying to do. You don't, I guess you don't actively try to break records. It's just like a nice bonus when you do break it, or do you actively try?
I actually try, but I'm lucky that if I try to break my own record, it's sometimes it's a world record. So it's my scores are really up close to the world records in a lot of disciplines. So then I really try to break the world record, sure. But um, I always have my comfort zone score and my really high score, and I try to get it as close to it as possible. And I have my plan for every single discipline. And what's important for me is that a lot of people say, okay, I did that in training, but I can never do it in a competition. A competition is a little bit lower than training. I don't think so. I think I can do my best score ever in the competition too. That's what I really do in every discipline. I try to get my best score, and I don't think about, okay, it's training score, I cannot do that. That's I try it a different way. I try to get your best score. And for example, when I got the speed number score 500 and 405, it was in 2008. That was actually my best score ever in a competition and in training. So you can improve your best score also in a competition.
And I think that's like a really important point because it's more of the way you think, affects how you do it. Having the confidence like, hey, competition or training, I can still get a best score regardless of what I'm doing. And that's and that's really important because, like you were saying, people don't think they could do their practice score in competition. They think it's like two separate things because the practice, it's ideal. It's just you at your computer or just by yourself. Competition is everyone around you. Now, like you're nervous about where you might rank your score, but if you just think, hey, I'm just gonna go for my best score, beat my best score, it probably really does change how you do in competitions because
Yeah.
now you have this different, I guess, self confidence in your ability. Like I could do this, and this is if I break a record, great, I can get personal best. No, that's fantastic. It doesn't matter if practice or competition; it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, that's true, and it's true that you really have to be a little bit more careful in competition because you don't want to smash your own, well, you don't want to waste your trial or something like that when you go to 0 points or something. So you have to be a little bit careful. But what I always do is try to, when I sit on at the competition table, I always imagine myself at my desk at home. So I try to make every competition a training at home and imagine myself closing the eyes. Imagine, okay, I'm at home. Gives me the feeling of being in training and being at home, and that gives me quite more confidence, and I'm much more calm then. That helps me.
I think at the was it 2012 or 13 World Memory Championship, I think I saw you, just kind of like relaxing before an event. So that's what you were
Yeah,
doing. You're just kind of going back to your house, just getting the feeling, the atmosphere of it, and like kind of transferring it to the competition. And so that's cool because I saw you, just like just getting ready. And so
yeah,
that's
that's it.
awesome. Okay. Um, what what was the hardest challenge you faced when it came to memory techniques? If it's if it was like a competition or if it was learning a system, like what was the hardest thing you face when using memory techniques?
Um, you mean competition, or what? What do you exactly mean? I'm not sure.
It well, I guess for you it's probably competition because that's where you kind of started. So like, what was the hardest thing
Yeah.
during doing competition? What was the hardest challenge you faced?
I think, one of the hardest challenges at the beginning was um, to getting myself calm and quiet and not so nervous anymore. At the beginning, I had a lot of problems with my nerves. nerves, and I was nervous, and now there's a competition, and I try to being good at the cards, for example, speed cards is still sometimes a little bit of problem to be quiet and calm. That's quite hard. So, and that's how I started using that technique to imagine myself at home and so on. So that was quite hard because I was thinking, okay, what happens if you fail? What happens if you don't get the score? Where's your ranking then? And that's quite tough. That was one point. And the other point was being disciplined and training at home, because sometimes I'm just too lazy and think, oh no, I don't want to train today, and I don't want to build a system. It's too long, and I have to work around a little bit about the big card system, for example. And I found my own ways to work a bit around, but that's also one thing. So discipline myself and don't be nervous in the competition. That's, I think, quite the biggest challenges.
And yeah, absolutely agree. The nerves is something that you just it's all so new, and so you're kind of scared of just like what happens if you mess up anything like that. But also the practicing, because you're like, memorizing deck of cards would be useful, but just watching TV, even though the deck could take you 5 minutes or 2 minutes to memorize, you're like, that's too much time. I'd rather do something else. And so
Yeah.
I can see how those challenges were something you had to overcome in order to start, really make the improvements that you want to see in your scores. It's just something that I guess everyone has to face at some point, or maybe some people are just more disciplined, so it's easier for them. But I think everyone has in common is like kind of the nervousness, like if it's your first competition, because you're like, you're just really excited because you want to do well, but you're not sure, how it's going to play out. You practice for like only 5 months, so you're not really like sure if you're going to rank high, and so it's just like natural to be nervous just about doing something new that you're not quite sure of. Uh, oh, I think I may have froze. Okay,
You're not pros?
okay, you were. We're good now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I totally agree. So at the beginning, you're always nervous if you do something new, and after a while, you become used to it. So yeah, keep on doing it, and then you will become much less nervous.
I couldn't agree more. Now let's talk about memory outside of competition and just in life. How
Mhm.
has improving your memory affected your life? Like, has it give you kind of a new way to think about things, like problem solving, creativity? Like, how has memory improvement or memory techniques just affected your life in general?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. So it infected my life a lot, and those memory techniques and memory training and the success which I had in competitions. And for me, it was somehow special because, as you know, I have this muscle disease that affects my body. So I'm using a wheelchair now since 5 years, and I had a lot of problems by overcoming those mental problems which I have with that, because it's not just it's just a physical disease, but you can imagine if you have such a thing and you become weaker every
Mm-hmm.
week or every month, you cannot do that anymore, and you cannot do that. So it really depressed me somehow, and it really depressed me a lot, and it took me a while to overcome that depressions. And I think memory training and memory competitions and being good at memory competitions also helped me to get some confidence again, because I saw, okay, I cannot go play football, or I cannot go play table tennis anymore or something like that, but there is something else. I can do memory sports, and I'm really good at it, and I'm better than a lot of people, and I can go up to the top, and maybe I can be a world champion again sometime. And so I thought, okay, I want to be the world champion. I want to prove to myself that I can do something really great and big and huge, even if I have such a big disadvantage in physical abilities. So that was one big goal what I really want to achieve. And I was in 2009 and 10, I was second in the World Memory Championship, and it was quite hard for me because I thought, okay, I cannot do that. And second place is great,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, I'm not good enough, and this disease is hard, and I cannot walk so good anymore, and I fall down all the time. And then I had to make such a really big decision. I had to make the decision to use a wheelchair because I never wanted to do that. I just thought, okay, I can do it without it. But it was so hard to walk, to go outside, and I was afraid of falling down and everything. So I was sitting at home and saying, okay, I have a choice right now, and whether I stay home or I go out with a wheelchair. So and then I made it, it's fine, and I have to do that right now. That was quite tough, but then I can go to another competition again with a wheelchair because it's easier then. And so 2012 was actually the first year where I was to competitions with a wheelchair, and that was quite great because then I won this world championship, and I think it was quite close related to that because then I wasn't afraid of falling down anymore. I was okay with that, and I felt much more, much better, and not such exhausted. I was always exhausted traveling around, and with a wheelchair it was a little bit easier. And everything came together in this competition in London 2012, and then I was sitting there with the second deck of cards because I messed up the first deck of cards, and in speed cards, and Simon Reinhardt was quite close behind me, and I thought, okay, now I can do it. I will do it right now, and I just need 43 seconds or something like that, and then I did it, and I felt quite calm and good and confident, and so that's a big effect in my life that memory sports and memory techniques really helped to improve my confidence again, to do something which where I'm really good, and to see something what I really love doing, and that's great, quite great, especially if you have a big problem in your life. You have to find something what you love, and that will help you to overcome your issues. Yeah, doesn't matter which issues you have. If you have something you love, then you will overcome those problems.
And that's just an incredible story, Johannes, and I really admire you and find inspiration from you that how you managed to overcome the adversity in your life and be able to reach the goal you wanted, become a world memory champion. And it's just incredible to see that memory techniques helped you get out of that that kind of depression that you were in, that you can't do other things, but you being number one in the whole world, you know that must be feel really good. Like you said, give your confidence back. Like, hey, I might not be able to walk or do things like that, but I'm still good at other things. That's not gonna hold me back from achieving other things I want to achieve in my life. And so that's just a really powerful story, and just an inspiration to other people that just you could do pretty much whatever you want. Nothing, you can't let anything hold you back. You just have to go forward. Just put in the time, energy, effort, and you can do amazing things. And it's just it's just a inspiring story, and I have a lot of admiration for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, that's. I think it doesn't have to be memory sports for everybody, but you have to find something. For me, it was memory sports. So I'm very, very happy that it's there and that it's still there. And yeah, that's why I love this sport so much.
And I know I can see why you love it so much, and it's just it's just absolutely amazing. Um, so let's just talk about like what you do with your memory ability. Now, since you have one of the best memory in the world, do you just learn things for fun? Do you just show off to people like, hey, give me 100 digits and just check this? Like, what do you do with your memory ability?
Different things. So it can be like sitting in a bar or something and getting a deck of cards and impress people. That's fun. It's just fun. And sometimes in daily life I use it all the time. If I get a phone number, or try to memorize some names from people who I met or something like that. So I use it always in my daily life, and I am now trying to use it much more for vocabulary. I started learning a little bit Chinese and trying to use it there, and I use it for coaching people, training people, and that's a lot of fun. I really love to, especially training kids, because it's so much fun and it helps them so much if they have those techniques, because then they can learn much easier for an exam or for something else for school, and that's quite great. So I entertain people, I use it for myself, and I coach people with memory techniques, and I use it somehow every day, and that's great.
And that's how it should be. Memory should affect all areas of your life. Not just memorizing cars and numbers. There's just a
Yes.
lot of there's a lot of useful ways to use memory techniques just out there in the world. Um, so yeah, so what you're saying is spot on how how it should affect people's lives. Just going out, using it, maybe impressing people, maybe picking up picking up girls like that. You're like,
Yes.
hey, check this out. um,
Yeah.
so, uh, let me ask you, what is the best story you ever had to imagine to remember something? It like was the funniest, scariest, like exciting. Like, what was the best story you ever had to picture?
That's quite hard because, as you know, as a memory athlete, you always try to forget everything after a competition because you really have to reuse your journeys. Sure, but the coolest stories are always with people I know because I have people I know in my system, and that's quite crazy sometimes. And sometimes if you're sitting in a competition room and okay, there is a friend of mine and he is right now jumping on my refrigerator or something like that. That's quite nice to picture. For example, if you have in Names and Faces, you have a person who looks similar to a person you know. That's also quite nice to memorize, and it's quite hard. There's not such a special story which I really memorized in a special way or something like that. So I did so much images and stories in my head that yeah, everything is fun. Some are more fun, some are less fun, and yeah, violence and sex you always remember very well, but you will not tell everything about that to people. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in my head. I don't want to tell everything.
I I totally understand. I agree. And so, do your stories are they really like wild and crazy, or is it sometimes they're like more logical? Like if it's Big Bird, like if it's Big Bird fighting a giraffe, or if it's like just somebody riding a giraffe. Like, how do your images usually go? On the crazier side, or like more logical?
um, I think if I try to tell people the techniques, I always try to get them to create together with them crazy stories because I think for them it's much easier at the beginning. But for me, actually, when I really use the techniques in competitions, um, it has to go really fast.
Mhm.
So, for example, if I have try to memorize 500 digits in 5 minutes, then I also review in 5 minutes. So I go through the 500 digits twice, and there is not so much time to really create a big story around it or something. So actually, I would just put it there. Then there's a giraffe sitting on the chair. Then there's an elephant being on the refrigerator, and then go to the next. And there's snow on the table or something. Just snow on the table going on. So it's not such a big crazy story then, and it just happens somehow. But basically, I use the location as a stage to put the images there.
Okay, I could. That's understandable. You don't have all the time in the world during competitions to like make everything crazy. But like when you're learning things just like outside of competitions, is that when you make your stories more crazy because you have more time to kind of just make your stories?
Sometimes I make them more crazy, but it depends really on the images which I have to learn. So sometimes it's just easier to make a logical story out of the images when if the images are like that's easier to make a logical thing. Sometimes the images doesn't fit together in any way, and then you try to make something crazy. So it really depends on the image. So if I have a chicken and an egg, it's easy. Then you have a chicken and there's an egg. It's easy to combine. But if you have, for example, an elephant and snow, then the elephant is throwing snow at me, snowball at me, or something like that. So it depends on the images. And if when I do it outside competitions, I use more time to create the images, and then they can be more crazy or more wild or more colorful or something like that. And because then I have the time and it's easier for long-term memorization.
Hmm. Hmm. That's true. And that's probably the most important part when you're learning something useful. You want to be able to remember it long term, not just like maybe an hour later. You want to be able to remember a week, month, year later. And so I totally
Yeah,
understand where you're coming from, and I totally agree. I do the exact same thing. Competition. It's like a screenshot you're kind of getting, like a little screenshot of whatever's happening. But outside, like when I learned the periodic table of elements, I spent more time picturing crazier things because of to make it last longer. Because it was also fun to do it. It's fun just to see weird things. It's enjoyable just to kind of just
yeah,
see fun things uh, and that's probably one of the reasons I really like doing memory techniques just in general. It's just fun to use your imagination and picture crazy weird stuff. You don't do that. You don't get to do that on a day to day basis. Like at your job, you don't get to see a monkey riding a llama to go get some pizza. Like you don't get to see that or even think of that. So it's just kind of fun to think about these crazy pictures, right?
yeah. That's it. I think the fun is very important for us, for the people who really do it regularly, and because I think your brain loves um, loves new stuff, loves fun stuff, and if you do that more often, then you will do it again because it's fun. And yeah, that's a way how to be how to do it regularly, make it fun for you, and then you will do it more often.
And I couldn't agree more. And so I have one more question for you, Johannes. One more question. Are you ready for it?
Okay, I'm ready. What is going on now?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Who would make a better pizza? A zebra or a giraffe?
uh, I think a giraffe,
Why is that?
because with his long neck, it has more chances to get the good stuff on the pizza from up from the tree. If you want to get something up from the tree on your pizza, you need a giraffe. You
Okay.
know?
Okay. I can't argue with that. That makes sense. So, uh, so I
What
just.
about you?
What about? Uh, oh, that's a good question. Maybe a zebra because uh I don't something with their stripes. They're just naturally more. I don't know. Zebras are cool. That's why. 'Cause zebras are cool
Okay, I see.
and they run away from lions. Maybe giraffes too.
Yeah,
But zebras. I don't know. They have access to the ground. They are horses. I have no idea. I think zebras.
your question, my friend. It was your question.
Yeah, it was for you, not me. Put me on this.
Yeah, yeah, but you did it good, so it's fine. I'm happy with your answer.
Thank you. And so
It's,
I just want to thank you once again for letting me interview you because it's really always interesting to see what other people think, how memory techniques affect their lives compared to yours. Just kind of see the bigger scope of things. And I know I a lot of people always probably with you, focus on competition a lot. Like, what do you do? How do you do this? But I just really want to see like how it affects your other aspects of life. How can it help you better? Because I interviewed a U.S. competitor who's currently in school. He's only 14 years old. So I was asking him, how does that change school for you? Because like it really helps you in school. So just kind of seeing how memory techniques affects him, how memory techniques, competition affected your life and changed your life, for the better. it's just kind of cool to see how it could just change everyone's life for the better. Because I believe that there's no downside to learning how to improve your memory, except people saying you can't forget things anymore. And when you forget anything, they make fun of you forever. They're like, "Oh, I thought you were supposed to be like this memory person. Like, how could you forget this?" Like, they never let it go.
Yeah, I have the same experience, and that's the problem in games and phases. If you meet people on the street and they have been to your seminar 2 years ago, they say, "Oh, Mr. Mallow, do you remember me?" No, I'm sure. Ah, you're the memory champion. Yes, I'm sure. I'm sorry for that, but yeah, we have to live with that.
Yeah, I guess that's the only downside, right? People
Yes.
just always, I guess, they tease you about your memory, and just kind of make fun. But besides that, there's no other downside to it. It could help improve your life. There's no way memory techniques could degrade your life, make it go downward. I don't see it.
I have no idea which. No,
See,
I never had some bad experience with it. So yeah, I have to think about that. But I think there's nothing.
and that's why I kind of just want to interview just mental athletes or people who just use memory techniques, kind of see their perspective on the idea of memory techniques and like how it affects other things, because it's really interesting to me to see the different ideas that float around. And so I just want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to talk to me just about memory, because you really don't get to talk about memory techniques just with regular people and people around you, because like you say, we're a small group, and so people are like, don't. If people don't do memory, they're not really interested in talking about memory for the most part. And so it's just cool to talk with other mental athletes, because you both love memory and do memory competition and mnemonics. So it's just cool to talk to someone else about it.
Yeah, it was the same to me. And again, great that you have me here today. And thank you for your invitation. But quite nice to was quite nice to talk to you again. I hope we can do that also outside into an interview. And I think we will see us not so far from now in the XMT. And I'm looking forward to that. Thank
As
you.
You're welcome, and hopefully, maybe we're even a matchup at the end of the XMT. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, will be fun.
Okay, so thank you once again, Johannes, for your time.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.